tonight, Fiji soldiers injured in Golan accident. PM urges regional organizations not to be influenced by outsiders. A national carrier farewells Big Bird after a decade of service. Very good evening. 4 Fijian soldiers serving with the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force in the Golan Heights between Israel and Syria have been involved in an accident. According to an official Ministry of Information statement, this is believed to have happened over the weekend. The soldiers are part of No. 3 Company of the 1st Fiji Infantry Regiment under the UNDOF mission. They were travelling in TCM armoured vehicles similar to these. The government statement says that the armoured vehicle carrying the soldiers overturned, resulting in the injury of 4 soldiers, including the driver. 3 of the soldiers sustained minor injuries and were released after treatment. However, one of the soldiers suffered a spinal fracture and is receiving treatment in Israel. The families of the soldiers have since been notified of the accident, and further details will be released after a thorough investigation. Prime Minister Commodore Barenge Bainimarama this morning expressed his gratitude to representatives of the Secretariat of the Pacific Community for their continued assistance towards Fiji. The head of government has also called on Pacific leaders to start urgently addressing issues affecting the region. Speaking at the opening of the 8th meeting of the SBC conference, Bainimarama also took a swipe at another major regional organization, the Pacific Island Forum.
Representatives from the SPC today were urged to work together as a region to address the many issues that affect individual small island developing states. Prime Minister Commodore Barenge Bainimarama told his leaders that while there are many challenges affecting the Pacific people, the Pacific voice is still not strong enough on the global platform.
Fiji believes that we have not done enough to begin to address those challenges. In many instances, our responses have been half-hearted and sporadic. In almost all of them, they have been inadequate.
The Fijian Prime Minister told delegates that as Pacific Island neighbours we need to look out for each other. Bainimarama adds that it is however disappointing that this was not the case when Fiji needed regional assistance and that there were some hostile responses from some.
This hostility extended to what used to be the preeminent regional grouping, the Pacific Islands Forum. The 2 metropolitan powers who dominate that organization used their muscle to have Fiji suspended. But it made us all the more determined not to be deflected from our reform agenda, not to kowtow to outsiders.
Bainimarama says that Fiji's voice has never been stronger in the world through the chairing of the G77 plus China, and that there are some valuable lessons to be learnt over the last 7 years.
The lesson from the past 7 years is that our regional organization can only be weakened if they are used for political purposes or as blunt instruments of punishment. The effectiveness of such organizations become muted, and indeed their relevance is questioned.
Those attending the week-long conference to help shape the post-2015 agenda have been urged to come up with solutions that are realistic and that can be implemented quickly and effectively. Myron Williams, Fiji One News.
The country's new constitution and the promise of elections in September 2014 have been welcomed by Commonwealth leaders. But this was still not enough result in the lifting of our suspension from the Commonwealth. A final statement from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which ended in Colombo over the weekend, has pledged Commonwealth leaders unwavering solidarity with the people of Fiji and their expectation of Fiji's reinstatement as a full member of the Commonwealth family. The pledge goes on to say that this can only happen through the restoration of constitutional civilian democracy, the rule of law and human rights. The Commonwealth Secretariat also indicating that it will provide technical advice and support for the elections and has offered observers. Commonwealth leaders have also urged that an independent National Election Commission be established to oversee the conduct of credible and inclusive elections on a level playing field. Fiji was suspended from the Commonwealth in 2009. Fiji Airways has retired its last Boeing 747 aircraft. The island of Vanua Levu was today farewelled at a special ceremony. The plane will be making a final journey back to the US this weekend to its owners, also bringing to an end an era in local aviation.
Nearly 100,000 flying hours, 50,646 landings, and 11 years of service in the skies, the island of Vanuatu will finally make her last voyage out of Fiji on Saturday with the colours she proudly wears, just as the day she came on her maiden voyage to Nandi.
So, in saying goodbye to the 747, to the last one today, we also welcome the future, and the future will be bright for Fiji Airways.
Fiji Airways staff today bid farewell to what many have described as a faithful aviation servant over the years. Some were brought to tears as they placed parting messages, signatures, and a last tour of the jumbo jet as engineers worked diligently on her last servicing before they will see her off in the horizon in the weekend.
This is a very emotional moment today. We say farewell to this aircraft which has been in our fleet since 2003. This aircraft here has done nearly 100,000 flight hours, more than 15,800 landings. So it has been a very, very good working horse for Fiji Airways, or at that time Air Pacific, because this is the last aircraft which leaves under the brand of Air Pacific.
Pichler says while it has been an emotional parting, the retiring of the FJK opens the door to the new Fiji Airways fleet of Airbus A330s. He says while many have been concerned with the freight capacity of the new fleet, Fiji Airways has partnered with the Emirates airline to lessen the burden of cutting freight abroad.
I know that there have been some complaints of exporters because there's less cargo capacity on the A330s than with the 747. But we try to compensate this. For example, we just announced a deal with Emirates where we have an interline agreement for cargo, where we will fly the cargo to Australia and they take it on to the Middle East.
11 years of faithfully serving Fiji as a flying billboard in the skies, the island of Vanuatu will be finally leaving our shores on the 23rd of this month, where she will return to her owners in the US. For Fiji One News on board the FJK, I'm Madhyam Bolaitamana.
An Assistant Commissioner of Police appeared in the Suva Magistrates Court today. Senior Superintendent Biu Matavo, who is currently suspended, was the Chief of Staff of the Fiji Police Force. He is charged under Section 65 of the Crimes Decree with one count of using political violence and inciting communal antagonism. SSP Biu is alleged to have sworn at a junior police officer who was on duty. In court today, he pleaded not guilty and was released on a $2,000 bail. He'll reappear in court on the 21st of November. The Health Ministry has recorded a total of 203 cases of tuberculosis within the first 3 quarters of the year. The ministry is now embarking on a review of its National TB Strategic Plan. As Salite Start reports, the plan will be a key instrument in guiding TB control work from 2015 to 2019.
Out of the 203 cases of tuberculosis recorded so far, the Central Division alone recorded 116 cases, the highest out of all the other divisions. The Western Division recorded 56 cases, while the Northern Division recorded just 31.
Under the Global Fund, we hope to significantly reduce the burden of TB to 20 per 100,000 by 2014 by improving high-quality dots right across Fiji with increased case detection rate, case notification rate, and high treatment access.
The TB detection rate last year stood at 23 per 100,000. Dr. Korivueta says more is to be done by the authorities to increase the detection rate.
If we are complacent with our TB treatment services, unsupported family care practices, and incorrect self-treatment, we face an even greater humanitarian and epidemiological disaster in the emergence of multi-drug resistant TB. Therefore, we cannot be complacent.
Dr. Korivueta adds there must be a multi-sectoral approach to reduce the prevalence of TB in the country.
We focus so much on the disease, on the therapy, and all the intellectual excitement that surrounds therein. But I think it's time now that we need to go further and address that these are people that needs to be cared for.
So over the next 2 days, these experts will brainstorm ways to include all of these suggestions into this strategy. Halitesh Dutt, Fiji One News.
Police are still trying to locate the two passengers who fled the scene of a fatal accident on Saturday morning. Director Traffic SSP Mahesh Mishra says while the search continues for the two passengers, their focus is now on trying to determine the cause of the fatal accident that claimed the life of a 29-year-old salesman. The early morning accident occurred at 6 a.m. on Saturday along Yasi Road in Nandera. The 29-year-old was driving the vehicle with two other passengers when it hit a lamppost. An elderly man in his 80s alleged to have raped a 16-year-old student on several occasions remains in custody at the Savu police station. The suspect is alleged to have committed the offence on 3 different occasions in 2011 and 2012. The suspect is related to the victim. Investigators confirm the case file will be referred to the DPP's office for further action. In the news ahead, digitising of government archives near completion. And slithery surprise for farming pair. Hello again. The Ministry of Information has urged media organisations as well as journalists to start preparing for next year's general elections. Permanent Secretary for the Ministry, Sharon Smith-Jones, says while the Ministry will not directly conduct any training, it will instead assist organisations like the Fiji Media Development Authority to conduct trainings. Smith-Jones says the Ministry hopes to reach as many people as possible in disseminating information for next year's elections.
Doing training, we've talked about training journalists in, preparing for elections, reporting through elections, and I think that's important that that those training courses happen early in the year because, as I said, for a lot of journalists, it's unknown territory. You haven't reported on an election before, so it's important that that training does happen.
She adds the media is expected to practice fair and investigative journalism.
Doing a little bit more investigative work before the stories run. So, and I think the media do a fabulous job on the whole in Fiji, and the professionalism has certainly changed since I've been in the ministry for the last 3 years. And it's just making sure that we move forward and that journalists do, just report with balance, just report the truth.
A 42-year-old man has appeared before the Nosori Magistrates Court for allegedly spearing an 11-year-old student on Saturday. The alleged incident took place at around midday in Nukui village in Rewa. It is alleged the 42-year-old fisherman used a boat oar to spear the victim after he and his friends were teasing him by swimming towards a fiberglass boat which he was cleaning at the time of the incident. The victim was rushed to the CWM hospital where he underwent surgery. Government plans to put its digitalized archives of Fiji's history on the market soon. The digitalizing of historic and iconic film, audio and video of the country, dating back almost 100 years, is now almost completed by Australian-based firm DamSmart.
Fiji's history dating back to 1940s is now being transformed into the digital format. 95% of more than 2,500 tapes and units of footage have been digitized with high quality. The digitized files will be brought back from Canberra by the first week of December.
We'll bring them over on a huge server, all the pieces of film, and then they'll be all catalogued. So within probably 2 weeks, we'll have access to the collection. We've already seen parts of it now, and then in the new year, it'll be then giving access to those old pieces of film to the general public.
The cost of digitizing the archives has been pegged at close to $1 million. The government in turn hopes to earn revenue from the sale of those footage. However, a proper price structure will be put in place first.
Plans to go through the most popular ones and burn them onto DVDs and then have them for sale so the general public can buy them. I intend to take them out to the schools because there is so much historical value attached to them. But first of all, we have to look through them ourselves and decide what is in this collection. But it's we have to get as much of it as we can out, because there's no point doing it if it's going to sit there and not be accessed by anybody.
Smith-Jones says this will prolong the life of archive footages and will be displayed to public.
For record keeping, the system it's a very robust system that we have the films on. The most important thing is to get access to these films, because in the past they've just been sitting there. So some of the film that I've had the privilege of seeing, it hasn't been seen before. It's probably been played once, if at all. It's sat there. So we're seeing things for the first time, and I think everybody in the country who sees this collection or starts to see some of this old film, there's so many memories in there. There's so many things that we've forgotten simply because we haven't had access to that historical footage.
Fiji is the first country in the Asia-Pacific region to digitize its archive footages, video and audio tapes. Halitesh Dutt, Fiji One News.
The Fiji Cancer Society has received another cash boost. Colgate Palmolive Fiji Limited has handed over a $5,000 cheque to the society. The handover also marks a 5-year partnership between Colgate and the Cancer Society. The funds will go towards raising awareness for breast cancer in the country. An ordinary day out in the plantation turned up with an extraordinary find. That's after these two cousins stumbled upon this slithery find. The snake, measuring just over a meter long, was found at Vekomba near Toloisuva. The pair say they were clearing forest cover when they stumbled upon the snake. The Pacific boar is commonly found in heavily forested areas around the country and is completely harmless.
I was cutting wood when I saw the snake slithering towards me. I'm pretty sure it was returning from the water, looking for food. I found the snake as it was going up a tree, probably back to its resting place, so I caught it.
The pair of cousins hope to sell it to anyone interested in the slippery species. Adult snakes can grow up to 2 meters, almost double the size. More strict measures should be put in place if the Pacific wants to stop overfishing by foreign vessels in its waters. A report launched today by Greenpeace reveals that more than the required number of vessels are fishing in the region, placing pressure on fish stocks for many countries.
In 2012, more than 3,000 longliner boats and 297 person vessels were found fishing in Pacific waters. Greenpeace, the global environmental advocacy organization, says this is way too much for the region.
And we'd like to see that there be, first of all, a cap and a freeze placed on fishing boats entering the Pacific at the upcoming meeting of the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission in December next year.
This many number of vessels into the Pacific waters fished over 1.5 million tons of tuna, creating instability in the tuna industry. Greenpeace is now lobbying for a certain criteria to be put in place for any vessel coming into the Pacific waters.
We're not only looking at number of boats, but we also think that boats that are environmentally friendly as well as socially friendly, and the criteria there need to be considered. So we're looking at boats that are fuel efficient, boats that are environmentally friendly, boats that provide product or fish that's fit for human consumptions.
The report has also revealed lack of strict measures put in place by authorities on a national and regional level to address this growing issue.
Fish stocks are being overfished, and overcapacity of fishing vessels in the Pacific is actually driving the overfishing of tuna. For example, big eye in the Pacific is at record low levels, is being overfished by these industrial fishing vessels. So we're saying that there needs to be a measure put in place to sort of tackle this issue.
The report will be presented to the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission later this year for recommendation. Halitesh Dutt, Fiji One News.
We have news from around the Pacific up next. Stay with us. After months of severe water shortages and food scarcity, full recovery from a harsh drought is now on the horizon for the Marshall Islands. The Marshalls government had declared a state of emergency in April this year. There is now also assistance being provided by the British High Commission and the UNDP to formulate a comprehensive drought recovery plan. Funding is also being provided for an expert to outline the key elements for the drought prevention strategy.
Initiative that brings us together, this partnership, is really, it may seem modest, but I think it's extremely strategic, UNDP has been working on a project that supports the immediate recovery from the drought that's following the declaration of emergency by the government that occurred last year. But what is very special about this is that we are now working with the government to really prepare the medium and long-term plans so that these kinds of events don't repeat themselves.
With $55,000 Fijian dollars being injected by the British High Commission for this project, there are also hopes that the outcomes will also benefit other Pacific Island nations.
We also hope that what comes out of this are some ideas in this strategy that are relevant and usable in other Pacific countries, because this is an issue that affects many other communities in the Pacific, not just in the Marshalls. So we hope there are things that come out of this that have wider application.
Pacific Island University students are also taking part in the 19th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. The 7 students are part of the climate change program at the USP. They're attending the Global Climate Talks as part of the Nauru delegation. USP's Director of the Pacific Center of Environment and Sustainable Development, Professor Elizabeth Holland, says they are trying to build the capacity of their students to become climate change negotiators through the UNFCCC process. A plan of work for the students is developed by AOSIS, with students being assigned to different negotiation threads. And Williams next with sport, and Fiji Mbati set up kangaroo semi-final.
That's right, Willie. This will be the second clash between the two sides as Fiji hopes to come up with a better game plan this time. That's coming up also ahead. FNRL gets $1 million sponsorship boost from Vodafone. And FRU unveil new HPU manager. Welcome back. The Vodafone Fiji Mbati played their hearts out to win an all-important Rugby League World Cup quarter-final clash against Samoa this morning. Their sheer determination was enough to repeat their feat of 2008 as they won 22-4 to set up a repeat semi-final clash against the Kangaroos.
The Vodafone Fiji Mbati entered into today's quarter-final clash against Samoa carrying the favourite stake. Fiji was eyeing their second consecutive semi-final appearance at the Rugby League World Cup. The side didn't waste any time in the game, racing to an early lead.
Fiji over the 10, can they get there now? Aaron Groom finishes off the play for Fiji, striding through.
West Ningama adding 2 more points in the 10th minute after David Fa'alonga's illegal shoulder charge.
Measures that one up okay as well.
The Fijians extended their lead in the 33rd minute with Nengama's try awarded by the video referee after a suspicion of offside. Fiji went into breather with a 14-0 advantage.
Given to Fiji, they lead now by 12 points to 0.
Samoa found it hard to test the Fiji line again in the second spell, but finally got their challenge up and running on 58th minute. Fiji inched further ahead 12 minutes from time when Samoa were penalised and Nengama, superb with his boot, kicked the penalty, scoring 14 points alone. And Vitali Junior Rongida ensured Fiji go into the semi-final on a positive note by crossing with 2 minutes remaining.
Underneath the sticks, to book a place.
It's a real unified group that comes together, and they come together pretty quick. And I think they showed today how they defended it. They wanted to defend with a man next to them, and they wanted to really not let each other down.
The Fijians' 22-4 victory is also expected to earn them a place in the 2014 Four Nations Series in Australia. Irfan Khan, Fiji One News.
Fiji Mbati's victory has also earned them a place in the 2014 Four Nations Series Down Under. And just in case you missed out on that game early this morning, you can watch the replay on Sky Pacific's Super Channel at 7 tonight. Or you can also catch that replay right here on Fiji One at 9:15. Although Samoa finished second best, coach Matt Parrish believes they've set the platform for the sport back home, having reached the Rugby League World Cup quarterfinals for the first time.
Yeah, I think it's massive for the development of rugby league in Samoa, and for the to get this team together to play represent Samoa. The calibre of the boys that have played in it, and as I said, the way that they have lifted and played, I think it's really puts Samoan rugby league back on the map.
And it was a double celebration for the Fiji Mbati. The Fiji National Rugby League got a shot in the arm by their major sponsors today. Vodafone has again partnered with the FNRL for the next 4 years, giving them one of the highest ever sponsorship of $4 million. This is a huge increase from last year's sponsorship of $1 million. The new deal will see FNRL getting $1 million every year.
We're delighted to be renewing our contract with Fiji Mbati. Their outstanding performance this year at the Fiji Rugby League World Cup has really lifted the profile of rugby league and definitely has lifted the brand for Vodafone. We want to make sure that we get behind the ones that have the greatest needs and determination to aspire in this field. Today, we'll fund all tournaments that will be endorsed by and organized by the Fiji National Rugby League, which includes the Vodafone Trophy, the Vodafone Cup, the State of Origin, the Battle of Bati, Interzone, the Nines tournament, and the naming rights of the Vodafone Fiji Bati national team. And we hope that this renewal will be a huge morale boost for the team as we prepare for the semi-finals.
This sponsorship will surely boost rugby league in the country, particularly the domestic competition.
Now receiving the $4 million sponsorship, it's actually I'm quite emotional in regards to what Vodafone has done for the sports.
The Fiji Rugby Union has appointed an Australian as the general manager of their high performance unit. He comes with a vast knowledge and experience in rugby, having worked with the Pacific Islanders and recently the Tongan rugby side. He replaces Mike Ryan, who resigned earlier this year.
He's the new man now in charge of the Fiji Rugby Union's HPU.
I see to come here a very exciting opportunity for me to, because I see great potential. I've been watching Fiji rugby closely for a number of years.
The 56-year-old comes with extensive experience, having coached at club level in Australia. He was also Australia's assistant under-24s coach, was part of Pacific Islanders team in 2008 and also helped Tonga in the last Rugby World Cup.
And I think I can really got a lot to offer to work with all the staff here and the high performance unit to take the Fijian performance to another level.
The New Zealand board officially started last week. He takes over from Mike Ryan, who resigned earlier this year.
In this month, meeting with all the high performance unit staff and talking with them one-on-one and in their units to look at what the current situation is.
Mekki is looking forward to the new challenge and is excited about the plans for local rugby's future.
What we need to do, making an assessment of what we need to do to achieve the objectives, which are for the Flying Fijians to be in the top 10. And in fact, I think the number 8 is in the world. I think is the target for the strategic plan. So,
and FIU is also fortunate to bring on board a sporting professional of Mekki's caliber. His salary for the next 3 years will be fully sourced from funds provided by IRB.
Well suited for the job. We want to keep him as long as we can. Just like with the Ben Ryan approach to consistency over a couple of years is important for rugby house. Otherwise, change, not good.
John Mekki will carry out the full responsibilities of the FRU HPU. Irfan Khan, Fiji One News.
Suva has become the first football district in the country to host its own awards. This is a new initiative taken by the district officials to honor its club officials and players.
The first of its kind by any football district in the country, Suva Football Association had their awards yesterday to honor club officials and players for their contribution throughout the season.
We have organized this to reward the players and the hard-working officials. They have worked throughout the years. We have seen that Fiji football is doing for past years. So I just made in my mind that we should also reward these players for their hard work.
Suva football striker Samuel Adunru was the big winner on the day. The Civic Club striker took out the Best Player award and was also given the Golden Boot for scoring 20 goals this season. Colinio Sivoki was named the Young Footballer and Civic won the Team of the Year award, earning the right to represent Suva in the National Club Championship with runners-up North Pole.
The club competition is in the Super Premier was more competitive, and the winner is of course Civic Club, Professional Security Civic Club, and the runner-up is North Pole. Both teams will represent the Champions League, which will be hosted first week of December.
With this year as their first ever award, Suva Football hopes to go bigger next year. Irfan Khan, Fiji One News.
The call for the national championships to return to the Pacific Schools Athletics, primary schools athletics rather, has been echoed once again by the Central Division. This after a landslide victory during the FMF Chow Games in the capital last weekend, where the winners were confirmed well before the competition ended. Undisputed champs yet once again, Suva Blues ending their season with one of the most dominant performances. But just how much does it impact the sport's growth?
Yes, that's what the Central and Eastern Division are trying to push forward to in our next AGM. That we want to have a national game so that we can justify to other districts how strong the competition can be and for the betterment of the children.
Organizers eager on the return of the national championships. Last year the games were held among schools, this year in districts.
At the same time, we're trying to see that we have more teams within Suva separated by maybe FTU-based districts so that we're able to have more competition.
The unevenness reared its ugly head over the weekend when 7 districts drowned in the shadow of a dominant side.
Of the 85 gold medals at stake over the 2 days of competition, Suva Blues claimed 51 gold medals, accounting for 60% of the total gold medal haul.
The concern now for the custodians of the game, how to even out the playing field.
We've also got Northland that have won a couple of medals. We've got all the districts that have participated have won medals. That means the coaches are developing. So in order to make the competition more, we'll invite other districts.
The motion will be brought up in the next AGM, which means next year's games will not see a repeat of this year's partisan. Fiji international golfer Vijay Singh finished in 3rd place at the Talisker Masters tournament in Melbourne today. Singh in the final round shot even past 71 to finish with a total score of 274. Australia's Adam Scott successfully defended his title, winning by 2 shots. Starting the day 4 shots clear of the field, Scott saw his lead dwindle as American Matt Kuchar fired around the compositive layout. A playoff loomed as the pair were tied at 14 under par before a double bogey on the 18th for Kuchar to hand Scott the title. After 21 years in the professional arena, New Zealand heavyweight boxer David Tua has formally announced his retirement from the sport. Despite his recent defeat at the hands of Alexander Ustinov, Tua lives with an enviable track record of 52 wins from 59 professional bouts. Tua can also lay claim to having never been knocked out by any of his opponents.
After 21 years, 59 fights and 43 knockouts, a happy face but an underwhelming end to an explosive career.
I'm sad to say, but my heart is not in it anymore. I think it's time for me to try something else.
Told he had to beat Alexander Ustinov by knockout to get another world title shot, Tua never looked like coming close. David comfortably beaten by Goliath.
For your winner by unanimous decision, fighting out of the blue corner, Alexander the Great Ustinov!
Despite the tepid exit,
and this is the way it went for most of the fight. Every once in a while, David would land the left hook,
but too few. The beaten brawler has no regrets, even the failed world title shot against Lennox Lewis, which he considers one of 2 career highlights.
The first will have to be the fight that gave me the opportunity to put the final payment on my parents' house. The second will be the challenge for the undisputed heavyweight title of the world.
Tour has political plans but won't reveal exactly which party he might plump for. His schedule for now, though, is sorted.
I'm going to take a sleep for a week. That's what I need, man. Sleep for a week.
The lackluster fight would have put many to sleep last night, a disappointing end to a career that promised much.
Houston Up is going to win a unanimous decision.
Hopefully more remember the thrills.
Another big bomb and Ruiz is down.
Not bad for a dishwasher.
David Tua left the building tonight. Thank you very much. God bless.
India's cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar has retired from international cricket with a victory in his 200th test after India defeated the West Indies by an innings and 126 runs in Mumbai. The cricket legend was dismissed for 74 in what was his final test innings, and India didn't have to bat again. The retirement of Tendulkar, the most prolific run scorer in test history, brings down the curtain on a 24-year career.
Whatever you've done for me, I know I've met so many guys who've fasted for me, who've prayed for me, done all sorts of things for me. You know, without all that, life wouldn't have been like this for me. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and also say that time has flown by rather quickly, but the memories that you've left with me will always be with me forever and ever. Especially Sachin, that will reverberate in my ears till I stop breathing.
Thank you indeed, Sachin, and that's
such a legend.
Such a legend indeed.
Thanks, William. Stay with us. We have world news after the break. Hello again, we're on to world news now, and Chinese families are praising the government's decision to ease its one-child policy that's been imposed on millions of families for more than 3 decades. The CNN's David McKenzie explains why it's also been difficult for many of the only children the policy has produced.
At a restaurant on the outer edges of Beijing, Xiang Xiang's family gathers to celebrate her birthday and praise new changes in China's one-child policy. Because now schoolteacher Ho Fang is allowed to have a second child.
If I have one more child in the future, I wish that the number could be 3.
For 3 generations, the one-child policy shaped their family. Xiang Xiang's grandmother was one of 9 children, but the law forced her to have only 1. It was the same for Fang. It made Xiang Xiang the center of their world, like in most Chinese families. But Fang and her husband remember their own childhoods. As far as I'm concerned, if she had a little brother or sister, it would be better for her, he says, because I'm an only child too. I was always lonely growing up. Millions of couples in China will now be allowed to have a second child. It's one of the most significant reforms to the one-child policy since the late 70s. But has the Communist Party acted too late?
Internally, I'm very happy, excited. Unfortunately, at least for our family, I could not afford to raise one more child.
Like many couples today in China, Fang says they are saddled with debt, struggling to handle soaring prices and expected to support their aging parents. As we get older, they're going to take care of all of us elderly, she says. How are they going to be able to do that? The changes in the one-child policy are meant to secure the future of China by giving a choice back to families. But for many, perhaps, it's a choice they cannot afford to make.
Talks have resumed this week in Geneva on a potential deal with Iran over its nuclear program. French President François Hollande is in Israel discussing the issue with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu stressed his concern over an agreement that would reduce sanctions on Iran.
François, I want to tell you the burden it places on me as the Prime Minister of Israel. It is my duty to prevent anyone from credibly threatening or executing another Holocaust against the Jewish people. This is my obligation. But I also believe it's our common obligation. For the sake of mankind, for the sake of our common future.
Nearly 9 days after Typhoon Haiyan and the Philippines, untreated injuries are now a major problem. Wounds are getting infected and posing a deadly threat. Another major challenge is newborn babies who need specialized treatment. The CNN's Ivan Watson reports.
Jania Mustasisa pumps for dear life. Her newborn baby isn't breathing. And there's no incubator, no respirator, and no electricity to power the machines to save this 2-day-old baby's life. So her mother pumps oxygen by hand. Baby Mustasisa is just one of 27 newborns here. Storm babies, you could call them, all born after the typhoon. They're in a hospital chapel that was converted into a maternity ward after the storm destroyed this city.
These tiny babies are in what doctors are calling the ICU, the neonatal intensive care unit. It's clearly improvised, and they've been put here because their health situation is frighteningly unstable. In fact, doctors say 6 infants have died in this chapel in the last 6 days.
Dr. Leslie Rosario says some of these infants are too unstable to be medevaced to a better hospital out of the storm zone.
What do you need for these babies right now, most?
Mostly now, mechanical ventilator, especially for these babies, and then suction machine, incubators for prematures.
Tiny, fragile cocoons. This little girl was born just a few hours ago, and she's 6 weeks premature. During our visit, some good news. Little Sian James' health has stabilized, and he graduates from the ICU to rejoin his mother.
Is this your first son?
First.
How do you feel?
Happy.
Doctors say most of the newborns here are healthy. But during what should be a moment of joy, parents also face uncertainty. Many have seen their homes destroyed, so they rest amid the pews. While next to the altar, Dr. Rosario says baby Mustasisa's chances are not good.
Right now, the baby is really in a very poor condition, critical condition. So it's really a poor prognosis for this baby.
There is little more Jania Mustasisa can do now, but pray for her daughter's life.
Showers and thunderstorms were experienced over most places today. A trough of low pressure remains slow moving over Fiji and extends over Tonga. A look at the headlines again. Fiji soldiers injured in Golan accident. PM urges regional organizations not to be influenced by outsiders. A national carrier farewells Big Bird after a decade of service. That's Fiji One News. Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.